Now this is another project I've been on with on and off for a while, and it's a ride on tender for my Romulus type Loco. It's made out of fairly basic and simple items. It's just 30mm box section for the actual frame, and then 2-inch angle iron for where the tender body will sit. Now this particular piece of angle iron, it was in 2 pieces, and as I needed 2 equal lengths, I just welded it together and then fettled it up, and it fit okay. It matched the other side. Now the buffer beam is just simple 1/4-inch plate, which is bolted onto the to the box section there. Now the wheels and axles, I've had these for quite a few years, and I've decided to incorporate these into the tender. They are quite heavy, and they will need some lightening and modifications. The axle box are just simple pieces of steel milled out to suit the horn guides, which are 30mm box section welded to the frame. Of course, the springs are some spare springs I had for many years, quite strong, so I utilised these. And the axle box is bushed with a bronze bush. Now the brackets there are welded to the cross member and then bolted to the side pieces. I've done this so that the frame can be taken apart if need be for any modifications. The buffer beam can also be removed for any modifications that might be needed. It's just at the moment temporarily bolted to the frame. Here's the bracket, and this will be connected to the engine via a drawbar. Another view of the wheel set, and the simple axle box keeps there. Axle box keeps are just pieces of rod screwed at either end. Now the wheels are very heavy, as I mentioned. They really do need to be lightened, and this is what I plan to do. Give them a good clean up and then machine them, try and remove some material and lighten them, because they are very heavy. The tender body then will lie on top of these angles and be bolted in place when in use. Now the tender body I had made up by a sheet metal company, and I had no facilities for doing large amounts of sheet steel. I just didn't have the facilities, but they made a nice job of this, and nice welding. They also roll the edges, which was a nice touch. I didn't really expect that, but I was very pleased what they had done. Now my previous tender, which I made, had flared edges, but I decided not to bother with this tender and just leave it as it was. And the cost for this was really very reasonable. It didn't cost a lot. It was certainly well worth it, and saved a lot of work, and of course saved a lot of time. Now I've already fixed one piece of angle onto the base of the tender, and the next 2 pieces, which will go on the side sheets. Then a piece of steel will be cut to form the bulkhead. I don't know whether it's going to be a toolbox or a storage, or I don't know really. It could possibly be used to house a small compressor at some later date, and be useful for air braking. It's only temporarily bolted at the moment. These bolts will be shortened, although they'll never be seen once the bulkhead is in place. The engine does have side tanks, so there's really no need for a water tank. on this tender. Now this is one of the other pieces of angle which will be fixed to the side sheet, and the same will be on the opposite side. They'll be fixed with countersink screws. These will be countersink on the outside and nutted on the inside, and the countersinks will then be filled prior to painting. Now it was here I had a small problem. My intention originally was to have a piece of angle across the top to form the top section of the bulkhead frame, and the idea was to slit the ends of the angle and bend them over each end so that it would fit between the tender body. But I struggled here and I could not get the exact fit. After a couple of tries, I gave it up, and what I decided to do was to just weld a small flat piece on the end of the angle and use that that way, and that worked out quite well. It was easy then to just drill through the tender side sheet into the piece I'd just welded onto the end of the angle, and likewise on the other side, and then just bolt the top part then to the bulkhead frame, and this also acted as a stay in the tender body. Now I've got two small pieces of steel cut, and these are going to be welded to the end of the angle, and that will form the top part of the bulkhead frame. I found it easier this way. And here we see the piece which is welded. Not the best of welding, but nobody's going to see this once it's in place, and much easier now to fit between the tender side sheets. Now it's just a matter of drilling all the pieces of angle and then bolting them to the side of the tender body. As I mentioned, this also acts as a kind of a stay, really. The whole bulkhead frame acts as a stay, and it makes the tender body more rigid. And now just drilling through the angles through into the tender body, and these can be bolted down. What I shall do is then countersink the outside of the side sheets, and then nuts on the inside. As I said before, the countersinks will be then filled before painting. The rear angle of the bulkhead frame has been attached to the back end of the tender. Here I've countersunk for countersink screws, and these will be filled in with filler prior to painting, as I mentioned before. Everything's more or less lined up. The angle's been milled, and that's ready for fitting now to the side sheets, and that's the next job. Now everything is temporarily bolted together just to see how it fits. There's a countersink screws in the rear which will be done on the side panel. At this point, I was going to put screws into all this plate, this bulkhead plate, but I decided I would spot weld it instead, because I didn't fancy messing about with a load of screws, and it really wasn't necessary. And also, if it's all welded together, it'd be easier to take the complete panel out if need be, instead of having to do loads of screws. So that was the next job to do. Everything lined up okay, so that's what I did next. Well, that's the spot welding bit done. Not the neatest, but it does what I need. It holds it in place, and it's really better doing this, I think, than putting a load of screws in. And also, with it being one piece now, it does make it easier to put into the tender body, and also makes it easier if I need to take it out again. Now, another small problem I encountered, which isn't often really with angle iron, but it was slightly out of square, whether it was due to the welding or what, I don't know, but I needed to just clamp down on the milling machine and skim one side to bring the angle back square. I suppose I could have left it, but I liked it a bit more accurate than that. Well, it don't look too bad, doesn't that? It certainly made it a bit easier, just spot welding. It made it a little bit neater as well, no screw heads showing or anything. It's all in one piece now, it's easily enough to lift it in and out. And if I need to reposition it any time, I can easily do that. Highly unlikely, but plenty of room there for any modifications I need or might need to do in the future. It was really mainly used just as a compartment to keep all my firing irons and cloths and usual bits and pieces what you carry around with you on a Loco. Now I've cut a piece of steel out for the top of the toolbox, the rear compartment, and I've actually machined one edge on the miller. And what I decided to do was to machine the other edges to make them nice and square, and then I'll cut out a section for the access into the toolbox. Now, I've just lined it up with my scriber, just using the old method of using the pins on the scribing block, which these are running along the edge of the T-slot groove. Although you must make sure your T-slot grooves have no bumps and lumps, otherwise you'll not get a proper reading. But just a quick and easy way of lining up a scribe line prior to milling. Well, I'm now milling this other edge of the plate. Just put the auto feed on and let the miller do its job. It's I probably could have filed it really, but I find this easy setup and an interesting little job. Just makes a change. Well, that's the top plate fitted now. Just a tiny bit of filing on the edge at the corners to make it fit. If there's any gaps left, I'll just fill them when I come around to painting it. I just need now to cut out the rectangular section there for the access to the compartment, and then sort out a piece of steel for the lid. Now I do intend to install a seat, and the method I'm going to use is to install two small angles at either side of the tender body with two small holes drilled in them. The rear of the seat base will rest on this portion here, and there'll be two pins underneath the seat which will locate into the two angles on either side of the tender body, and these will lock into place when in use, and it will also form a cross stay which will strengthen the tender walls when the seat's installed. Well, I'm just now drilling the top plate, which has already been marked out and drilled, and I'm using these as a guide, so just to get in the correct place on the angles. Well, I've now drilled all the holes on the angles for the cover. I'm actually tapping them 3/16 BSF because I have quite a large stock of BSF screws, and they're all countersink. So when I've finished tapping these, I shall countersink the holes and then use the 3/16 BSF countersink socket head screws. and when that's done I shall take off the plate, cut out the rectangular section for access into the compartment, and then fit the lid. I'm just using one of these small pin chucks to tap out the 3/16 BSF hole. Very handy are these. And now you can see I've cut out the top portion of the plate there for access to the interior, and I've cut another piece of steel here which will form the lid. I just need a couple of hinges now. Now I've been looking at a couple of commercial hinges, small ones, which I thought might do, but when I look at them, they don't look right. So I'm going to make my own hinges. I think that will look a little bit better. I suppose it's been a bit picky, really, but I mean, after all, it's only a lid for a compartment. But the commercial hinges looked a bit out of place, so we'll see. Now this is where I've countersunk the side of the tender there to take the 3/16 BSF screws which I mentioned, which I've got quite a large stock of. So I might as well make use of them, and these will be all filled prior to painting, so they'll not be seen. Well, this is part of the hinge assembly which I've made up. As I mentioned, I didn't like the commercial ones; they didn't look just right, so I just made these. They didn't take 2 minutes really. These ought to be finished riveted. This one of them's already riveted on there, but the other ones to be punched through and flattened out, and then will be file flush. There, that'll do the job. There we see the hinges temporary put together with a bit of wire going through. I shan't be using slotted edge screws, as can be seen there. I shall replace them with the hexagon head. Sorry for the annoying flickering. It's some new lights I've just put in. I must get them sorted out. Well, that's the top of the bulkhead finished. The door's all done. A simple little catch there will stop things rattling about. Now after this, I'm just going to drill 4 holes in the tender base clearance holes, and these are for some special holding down screws I'm going to make to attach the tender body to the frames. What I'm doing now is drilling and tapping 4 holes in each corner of the tender body. The reason for this is that I need the tender body to be separate from the main frames. It's so heavy now but I'm struggling to lift it. I won't be able to lift the complete tender. Now if it's separate I can load the body and the main frames easier into the back of the car, because my trailer won't be large enough to accommodate the engine and tender as well. So this is a compromise. These are the small custom made screws, and they'll just fit in each corner. So now we're just drilling the holes. And now that will be tapped partial way through, because I cannot tap all the way through because of the sides. I can't get a tap wrench in to fully turn it, so all I'll do is partially tap with using a spanner to turn the tap, and then when all 4 corners are done, the tender body will be taken off, clearance holes drilled for the
for the screws, and then I shall finish tapping the frame. That's the plan anyway.
And now to detach or attach the tender body to the frames, it's just a matter of screwing in these 4 special screws I've made with small handles on. It's so easy now. Just screw them to the main frame or unscrew them when I want to take the tender body on and off. That will make life a lot easier. Well, once again, I hope you found this of interest, and thanks for watching.